Welcome to episode 153 of Think Big with Michael Zellner, powered by Sleepy Z's Masonry. Joining me today for part 3 of his podcast series is Craig Weiner. Craig is a financial analyst from Memphis, Tennessee. He graduated from Ridgeway High School in 1979 and received a scholarship to play basketball at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. He has been handling money for clients for over 30 years now. I believe now actually over 37 years. They're comfortable with him. They trust him, and many of them with their life savings, and he takes really good care of them. During part 1 of our podcast last year together, we talked about his younger life, growing up in Memphis, playing basketball at Ridgeway High School. In part 2, we continued talking basketball. Craig had the opportunity to play against some of the guys who ended up becoming some of the best college and best NBA players, and you got to play with them and against them in all-star camps. And today in part 3 of his interview series with them, we're going to talk about money and maybe a few of the strategies of why he thinks he's done so well over the years managing others' money. And Craig handles millions and millions of dollars for about 100 clients over the United States and throughout the world, including Israel. Craig, welcome back to the show.
Man, thanks for having me. I love it. Excited. Very excited.
Awesome. Thank you. So
a little scary when I walk into the money thing because there's so many rules and regulations and stuff like that. But when I talked to you earlier, I said we can maneuver this minefield. We can handle this minefield. Don't worry.
Okay, cool deal. Before we get started talking today, I would like to thank our 2 sponsors of Think Big with Michael Zellner, which are Roof and Nail and Buckley's Grill. Roof and Nail is one of the leading experts in insurance restorations. Co-owner Kelly Potter and his crews are the preferred vendors of many mainstream insurance companies focused in the tri-state areas of Arkansas, Tennessee, and Mississippi. And not only can Roof and Nail provide you with the best evaluation on your roof to see if you qualify for insurance approval, but they also can provide you with a competitive bid for any out-of-pocket expenses and roofing projects. Big or small, they do them all. And Buckley's Grill, it's a hidden gem for those seeking a fantastic dining experience in Memphis. It's locally owned by Jeff Urinelli and Ken Dick, and they've been specializing in steaks and Southern hospitality here for over 30 years now. Upscale restaurant boasts a contemporary atmosphere with a touch of classic elegance. From the moment you walk in the door, you're greeted by friendly faces, great staff, warm hospitality, and amazing food. They make you feel right at home. So definitely want to thank our sponsors, Roof and Nail and Buckley's Grill. So Craig,
just so you know, 2 thumbs up. Roof and Nail, don't know them. Really, why would I? But Buckley's, great people, always great food. 2 thumbs way up, and local, as you said.
Yeah.
We locally owned. So, yeah, great place.
Definitely. So, you've been providing, financial advice and been an analyst, making people money for over 37 years now. If you could share with the audience a little bit about how this all got started for you back in the mid 80s and what led you to take that drive from New York to Houston.
I think that the most important thing, well, first of all, what made me take that drive was I got a job making $50,000 a year, which in 1985 was like sort of insane.
Sure.
And I took the job. The job that I took was the largest fixed income firm in the country, Westcap Corporation. I know, not even in New York. They were bigger than anything in New York, in Houston, Texas. They decided to hire 9 people to their very first training class. I didn't really know whether I wanted to be in fixed income. I didn't know where I wanted to be, honestly, in that. I knew I had a major in finance with a minor in economics. So I knew I was going in that direction, and the reality is I had an in Houston that got me the interview. And this actually happened, people. I had not graduated college yet. It was the summer of '85. I was working at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York, the original Hard Rock Cafe on 57th. And I had passed enough classes. I'm not even sure what they call it, but I passed enough classes that I was allowed to walk in May. So my family came up in May, and I still had like my thesis and the library course, and maybe one other course. I think it was 6 stupid hours, something like that. And so I'd started the process of interviewing. Basically interviewing. So getting the opportunity to fly down to Houston, my cousins worked at this firm. My first cousins, I should say, they got me the interview. I really went down there just for the experience. Hey, look, I've never interviewed. Let's see what happens.
Sure.
I had no dream of getting this job. I interviewed with 300 people, over 300 people, much more qualified than me, than I was. Thought I did okay, had a fun time with my cousins, went back to New York to finish school, and about 3 weeks later, they called me up and they were like, we want to offer you the job. And I was like, I really didn't know what to do. This is the truth. I'm going to try to fast forward a little bit here. The questions were exactly what you would think. I'm sitting in the Hard Rock Cafe in the manager's office on this phone with this woman, and I'm literally saying, this is literally the conversation. I haven't graduated college. And they were like they said, well, we don't really care. We like what we see. And I was like, in my head, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what's your next question? Well, how much are you going to pay me?
Sure.
Right. And they were like, they said, we're going to start you out at $4,000 a month. So I was smart enough at that, with my background, to sit there and go, that's $48,000 a year. I knew that the smartest people that I knew that I was in college with, which was outside of in Long Island, they were getting jobs in New York City. Like the top people I knew, they were getting jobs in New York City in marketing and advertising, whatever field they were in. They were getting jobs making $30,000 a year to start off. And those were like the top, those were people that I was like going, fuck you. You're too smart to be my friend, right? So I knew that was a big number. And then I was, had to wrestle with my mother and my father. What am I, what do I do? They gave me a couple of days, fortunately, to think. I'm sure I called my mother and father. I don't remember calling them, but I do remember calling these guys back and saying, I'm in. And I tried, just for the people out there that are gonna see this podcast, I tried, and even my mother and father, well, my mother would tell you, um, I really tried really hard to actually um, get my degree. Uh, Back then, you could attempt to do it. They called it correspondent courses. Okay. I mean, I even flew back to New York and sat and went in and talked to the dean of the school. Um, I got to be honest with you, just not because I really gave a shit, because I didn't, but it meant a lot to my mother and father. And so I tried. They didn't budge. They wouldn't let me do anything. And if you want to know whether I was pissed, yeah, I was really fucking pissed. Um, but I moved on. But here was the catch. Um, the catch was you come down, you study for 3 months. We pay you $4,000 a month to study for this Series 7 exam. Okay. And then you pass the exam. And then when you pass the exam, they're going to assign you to probably a seasoned broker to kind of work under. Um, if you fail, you're fired. So, as I alluded to a minute ago, and if y'all watch some of the past podcasts, the first two podcasts, you can hear all about my Hard Rock Cafe stories. I was flying out of New York into Houston, having way too much fun. I was 24 years old.
Sure.
Yeah. And when I got to Houston, I basically thought, study for this test? Me? I don't need to study for this test. I went to all the classes and did everything, but I didn't really work. And I went out at night and I partied and I did just like you would just everybody out there would think a 24-year-old dude that's working at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York would do, and I failed. I failed the test. And they fired me. I mean, it's not like a formal firing. It's not like, call you into the office. It's like, it's up. So there I am in Houston, Texas. I've got family. And I'll move real quickly through this. I got pissed. To be able to take that exam again, you have to get sponsored by another firm. And the first thing I did was I went and I got a job waiting tables at the fanciest Italian restaurant in River Oaks in Houston, Texas. At the time, it was a place called Birra Paredes. I went in there, had some pretty solid credentials. They were like, when was your last experience? I was like, well, I was working at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York. And they were like, what? Is there somebody we can call? Of course, I was like, here. They called them and they were like, yes. And they hired me on the spot. And so I got a job. And this time I got sponsored by a penny stock firm of all things, that we knew. Once again, we had a connection, and they were like, "We'll sponsor you." And they sponsored me. I got serious on the studying, and drove to Dallas, Texas around Christmas time of 1985 to the SMU Law Library. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And took that exam record time. And this will make some people laugh. I walked out of the law library and went right to the payphone. You didn't have cell phones, okay, back then. Went to the payphone, called my father, got on the phone, And the first thing I said, I can assure you that I passed it this time. And he was like, well, don't be so sure of yourself. And I was like, I passed it this time. And back then you had to wait like a week. So, um, and I did pass. And then I'm just going to flip through. Ultimately, I stayed in Houston for like another year, worked for this firm, and then just really decided to come home. Had connections at Morgan Keegan, and went up there and interviewed with Morgan Keegan. Literally the best boss I've ever had in my life, Bill Clay, hired me. And I came back home. So, and went to work at Morgan Keegan, which
You know,
was in fact, as a homage, I'm not even sure if that's the right word. I just attended John Stokes's funeral, who was the co-chairman of Morgan Keegan. A super guy, at least he was to me. Tough guy, really, really tough guy. Like almost like in a good way, like Dirty Harry, like like Clint Eastwoodish kind of guy.
sure.
He could have got shot 4 times while he's out hunting, you know, gets shot 4 times and drags himself all the way in, like almost Frank Blankler-ish, stories. But was incredibly sweet to me my entire life. And anyway, just throw that in there.
I guess you could say anyone could probably give someone their thoughts on money and, what they think is a good investment. But to do what you've done for so long, such a long time now, you studied and, obviously got the point where you started working your butt off. You said you passed the Series 7, I believe you passed the Series 63, 67, and
65.
65 and started making money for your clients. You work from your home office where you're at right now.
Correct.
And I'm sure today you're still, just still study because you're, working to help everybody make money that has invested with you. What makes you different, you in your mind, from maybe a lot of other quote unquote financial strategists out there that consistently work so well for you and your clients?
Well, I'm not a follower at all. I was blessed. When I went to work for Morgan Keegan, it was 1987. I was literally on the 17th floor of what used to be Morgan Keegan Tower on October 19th, 1987, when the market crashed. I was a rookie. One of the things that I really had a really hard time with was I didn't like to cold call. And that's sort of mandatory. But I knew people that had money, and I knew people that would take my calls and maybe give me a shot,
Sure.
simply because, honestly, because of my dad, my family, my
Right.
mother and my father. I shouldn't just say my dad. And so the thing that really bothered me, and I really did not know how to circumvent it. 99% of they change their names every freaking day. So I don't know what they're called now. Are they brokers? Are they financial consultants? Are they financial analysts? I mean, like every 5 years, they change the name. I would say 99% of those people that would fall into that category are people that are comfortable having somebody else tell them what they should buy, when they should buy it, and what they should sell, and when they should sell it. And they're very comfortable. What makes those people very comfortable, I don't know what makes those people comfortable because I don't really tick like that. Okay. And I'm going to get to the point I'm trying to make in just a second, but you're going to have to roll with me here. I think one of the things that makes them comfortable is the fact that these orders that they are being handed down, these plays that they're being handed down, they are being handed down by people in ivory towers. Okay, that if you play their game, okay, and the client gets upset, okay, and for example decides to, I'm being obviously a little dramatic here, decides to sue you because the game that you've been told to play lost them a lot of money. I hate to say this, but like Morgan Keegan's a great example with stuff that happened with all the loans, the mortgage stuff back in 2008. You know, their legal department will defend you. And it's a fancy way of saying, if you stay in our box, if you stay in our box, we'll defend you. If you step out of that box, you're on your own. That is a very comforting thought if you are a person that gets married, has a couple of kids. Know any people like this? Okay. Like the other 99% besides you and me, right, Michael? Right? Right?
Yep.
That's a very comforting situation. And so I think that about 99% of the people out there, I think that that's a primary reason that they're willing to just follow. Now, I, on the other hand, I don't like to lose. I mean, I'm a pretty good loser, and at this point in my career, you learn pretty early. You know, you better learn to lose. You know, it's just like in any sport, and it really comes from sport, really. You know, but I don't like to lose. And the other thing is that, you know, once again, if you look back at the first two podcasts, you'll hear about all my basketball stuff. I was a point guard. So I'm pretty not only used to having control, not being a control freak. I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea, but being the decision maker, you know, and for probably the first 6 years I was at Morgan Keegan, I really played the game. there was really, I mean, I honestly, I did not, like I said, I could not figure out how to circumvent this serious um, issue that I had with, uh, you know, I think we should buy this because it's a one rated, we have it rated 1-1 at Morgan Keegan, which is our strongest rating. Okay. It's in the healthcare sector. And you know how everything, I'm basically doing a sales pitch.
Sure.
Okay. And, what do you think? Okay, well, buy me 1,000 shares. Okay, we'll buy you 1,000 shares. You buy 1,000 shares. And then let's just say the thing is down, the stock is down 20%. Okay. Well, the client calls and the client says, what's going on with XYZ? And you go, well, let me go talk to the analyst. And fortunately, I work downtown at Morgan Keegan where I can literally go down the elevator 2 floors, and I knew all the analysts. And I'd walk in and I'd look at the analysts and I'd be like, can you tell me what's going on here? And of course, the analyst would be like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And of course, I'd go back up to my office and I'd get on the phone and I'd call the client and I'd be like, just got out, I'd sound big and professional. Just got out of the office with blah, 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 blah. And, he says everything's fine. And then the client would be like, okay. Hello, can you hear? Yeah. The client would be, okay. And, then the stock's down 30%. You know what I mean? And I really always disliked that lack of, I guess, control. That's the only word I can think of. Or I should say the ability to make a logical decision on, do I stay or do I go, as the Clash would say, Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to make sure that I can hear you. Can you say something?
Hello, hello.
See, I can't hear you. Oh, do you have it muted?
Not that I know of.
Okay, it's my speaker. I wanted to do that. That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Okay. You can hear me now?
I can hear you now because I turned my thing down. Anyway, it was a conundrum for me. I don't know if it was for anybody else. I really didn't care if it was for anybody else. I did not like to lose, and I did not know how I was going to get around this problem.
Right.
And, in 1994, the real estate investment, the REITs were really big. And there was a lot of big ones here in Memphis, located in Memphis, Tennessee. RFS Hotels, which is Robert F. Solmson. There's a ton of them. And Morgan Keegan was involved in every one of their IPOs. And so because of that, of course, I owned a bunch of them. Duh. I worked on the 17th floor. The 15th floor was the equity trading floor. And I used to just love to go down there all the time because it was just like, that's where all the institutional equity salesmen were. And all the traders. That's our trading floor was. So it was just really just
happening.
It was freaking alive, and I just loved the energy. It was also where our option principle were, the option trading, just so people know what we're talking about. Our options our options principals, they were located on that floor too. And they happened to be two of the most beautiful girls in the entire building. One of them was dating my boss, Bill Clay, at the time. So I knew her really well. And the other was Ann Miller. And, you know, I honestly didn't even know what they did, except I knew they were smart as fuck. Okay. And they were the options principals. Eileen Phelan was. She was like the top one. And I went down there one day when everything was getting the shit kicked out of it. And I looked at Eileen and I looked at her and I said, you know, what the fuck are we going to do in this market? I'm just getting killed. My clients are getting killed. And I wore that shit on my sleeve, on my arm, my sleeve, man. I was like, I can't even call them, And she just looks at me and she says, you guys don't have a snowball's chance in hell. This market is in bear confirmed. I was like, what the fuck is bear confirmed? I'd never heard that term, ever. And I mean, I literally looked at her and said exactly that. And she looked at me and she goes, Craig, you might, and this is just so you know, people, I just happen to have, this is sitting here, it's not a setup. She said, you know what? You might resonate. This might resonate. And she literally picks up this book. She pulls it off her shelf. And she hands it to me. And she says, you know what? I've noticed them doing charts every day when I'd be down there, but I didn't know what that was. I didn't do that stuff. And so she goes, here's Tom Dorsey's book. Why don't you read it? Take it home with you, bring it back, and maybe it'll help you.
I was going to say, don't go too far into this because I got lots of questions on this.
It's okay. This is probably the most important thing for people to not understand.
Good. Okay, good.
Well, I took it home because once again, as y'all are seeing, I was making okay money, definitely not great money. A lot of the reasons I wasn't making great money was I wouldn't cold call. I refused to. I didn't like to do it. And you're going to be pretty limited. And I wasn't confident in the entire structure. I wasn't sure whether I really wasn't sure whether it was going to work. I mean, honestly, it wasn't going to work. It really wasn't. I took that book home and I read the first chapter in the introduction, which I think is the most important part of the book, the introduction. And it just made perfect sense. It literally was like, the beginning of the book is like, if more people are buying something that are selling, it was economics 101, which I totally understood. If more people are buying something than are selling something, then it's going to go up, and vice versa. And if they're equal, they're going to just not move. So I understood those concepts. What I had never known, ever, until that night I took that book home, was there was a type of methodology that could allow you to record stock prices. Okay. And, you know, by using this methodology, you could record and observe daily the supply and demand movement in the markets and in individual stocks in particular. Well, everything, anything that's got a price. I do it with crypto now. Okay, just so people can understand. It's got a price and it trades. I can look at it. I can analyze it. There's a couple of things that happen. Like I said, this is the most important part. You can ask me any question you want after this. There were a couple of things that happened in literally that 24-hour period. One was, I was like, wow. You know, if I can figure out how to do these charts, if I can figure out this methodology, then, and here's the most important thing, then I can make the decisions on whether I want to own something or I don't want to own something. Or when I want to sell something. Okay. I'm no longer relying on the analyst. Okay. I am no longer relying on anyone in the ivory towers. I have got the ball back in my hand. Now, am I going to throw the ball away? Sure. I mean, the reason I'm in this freaking predicament is because the analyst threw the fucking ball away. Right? So, I mean, how much worse am I off?
Sure.
None, except I'm making the decisions, not them. And I'm okay. I can stay in this career. I can do this for the rest of my life, basically. Right. Like I said a minute ago, I would not have been in this business. I don't know. I really don't know what I would have been doing. Probably would have been, honestly, in the entertainment business, you know, gone to work with my buddy Mike Rozier, who you had on your show, and probably, you know, just continued that whole thing. That's most likely the path, because he would have been like this. Come on. Well, you're not close. We are. He'd have been like, come on, man. I'm going to make you a manager. Then you're going to be a general manager and then whatever. And that would have been fun. But when I found that loop, I dove right in. And I went to a seminar in December, which my boss paid for, mainly because his beautiful, she actually, unfortunately, has passed away. His beautiful, beautiful girlfriend, like, looked at him and said, send him to Dorsey Wright and Associates seminar up in Richmond, Virginia. And he said, I'm gonna send him, because I didn't have any money to do that. It was like $2,500 or something like that.
Right.
And I latched on and to the horse and never let go. And basically, I'm actually really blessed and honored Tom Dorsey, who sold Dorsey Wright and Associates, which was a point and figure charting methodology, the premier research firm in the world. He sold his company, Dorsey Wright and Associates, to NASDAQ, like the NASDAQ, for about $250 million, probably 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. Tom Dorsey's not only my mentor, he's continues to be one of my best friends. I talk to him probably once a month. And but I was blessed to be interviewed. God, I probably have that book sitting here too.
I got the book here.
Okay, I was going to say,
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yeah.
I was honored to be asked to be an interview in his book. Yep, Thriving as a Broker in the 21st Century. I think the thing that not only Tom Dorsey has urged me to do at the beginning, my father also and my mother, pretty much pushed me to uh, uh, be whatever you're going to be, attempt to be the best in the world. Attempt to be the best in the world. And I went on that path, and I was really lucky because, man, this is 1994. So like, I get to kind of cruise in there. We were getting research reports from Dorsey Wright Association, Dorsey Wright and Associates, faxed to us overnight. It was in the middle of the transition. It was a technology thing.
Right.
And I fortunately was just, I was in the right place at the right time. And I looked at it, well, first of all, I had a huge amount of success, like literally within a year, as you're going to probably, talk about.
Right.
But a huge amount of success. And it was scary as shit. I mean, it was totally scary, like really scary. And I made big decisions, based on, I zigged when everybody zagged.
Right.
And the people were zagging. They were looking at me. They were my best friends. They were my contemporaries. They were like going, "You're making a big fucking mistake." And I was like, "Oh, you know what? You know what? I'm going this way." And so that really set me off. And I just really immersed myself in this field. I became a beta tester for them on things that they were working on. They would send me stuff. They'd be like, "Take a look at this. What can you make out of it?" My brain, fortunately, was sort of wired.
Yeah.
Some people's brains are not wired. As I've said numerous times, and you'll hear me say this numerous times, a ton of luck, a ton of luck and serendipity, I think is a word that you can use in here. Just like, I got so frustrated at losing that I just decided to go down and ask Eileen Phelan of
I was
all
about to say that right there. I don't mean to interrupt you, Craig Bells has talked about the power of a moment. Imagine if you had not walked into Eileen's office and
I've
she had
been with Michael Grosier.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and she hadn't have pulled out that book and told you about the bear and
Had to look at me and said, "You know what? You just might,
Yep.
you might actually gravitate to this."
That one little moment changed your whole life.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. The trajectory of my life, with being born, okay, and that moment are like the two biggest moments in my life.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
I mean, you had so much success, obviously, just like you said, in a short period of time after that, that a couple of years later, I believe it was 96, you were on the radio, had your own financial show on the radio for about 5 years. How was that? What did you enjoy most about doing that?
I really feel like it was really fun. It was a pain in the ass. I'm glad I don't, I look back on it and, obviously it was designed to There were a lot of things that was really designed. I mean, my firm paid for it because it was designed to attract. It was a workaround, not cold calling.
Exactly what I thought you were going to say.
I actually created a newsletter when I
Yep.
was at Morgan Keegan. I could only use like Morgan Keegan, research, obviously, right? But on the front of my newsletter, which went out, I think I had it going out like weekly. It was either weekly or bi-weekly, maybe. I had a Gary Larson Far Side comic strip,
Mhm.
which I just love Larson. And I had a really funny one on the front of each one of my newsletters. And I felt like that was one of the ways that I could get people to actually open open the damn letter just to see the Far Side, and maybe they would look in.
Smart.
But that was my way around my fear. Let's just call it what it was.
Phonophobia.
Fear of rejection on the phone. I still have it. Seriously, still to this day. So the radio show was another way, another workaround, I guess you would call it. But it also, these are the years that these are early in my career, and this in my point and figure charting career, and these are periods of time where you're still building your confidence. You're still trying to build up your confidence in your understanding and your knowledge. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the field of point and figure charting. There are three major parts of it. There's the actual basic supply and demand, which is doing the charts by hand and reading charts. There's trend line analysis, and then there's relative strength, which is unique. It's point and figure charting relative strength. It's not RSI, which a lot of people have heard of relative strength or even momentum. But that's very different from point and figure charting relative strength. Point and figure charting relative strength, you actually chart. You do a calculation and you plot it on a chart. So it's very different. So these are the formative years, I guess, if I want to be formal about it, where I'm trying to learn as much as these are the G.G. Jackson years, where I'm trying to absorb and learn as much as I can, okay, as quickly as I can, and try not to fuck up anything. I can. So
For those that don't know, G.G. Jackson plays for the Memphis Grizzlies.
yeah, and he's 19 years old,
Right.
and he's starting for the Memphis Grizzlies, and he's scored 35 points in the game, which is just
Unreal.
just insane.
Ja getting hurt was huge for him.
Well, it was huge for the whole organization.
Right.
But so these are those years when I had the radio show. I'm building my confidence up. I have to get on there on Sunday mornings from like, I don't know what time it was. I think it was from 11 to 12 or something like that. And at that point I'd become the top broker within a year. I think it's something people need to understand as far as downtown retail. Within a year, I'm getting ready to go work with my friend Mike Grozier to the top guy in the downtown branch at Morgan Keegan. I'm not sure was I ever the top guy? I wasn't the top guy. I was in the top 2 or 3.
Right.
I was basically, the bottom line was I was making fucking money. Okay. And so I could, I had this radio show. I was doing a lot of traveling and having fun. It was on a Sunday from 11 to 12. So I did my shows. Like I'd go to freaking Miami, Florida. I'd go to New York to visit my cousins. I did my shows I had what do they call them? A producer in the studio that would hook me up.
All right. Thanks, Craig.
You got it, man. Love you.
Love you too.